Welcome to Real Estate Investing Abundance, the show for busy, fulfilled professionals like you to learn how to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alan Lomax.
Hello, enlightened investors. Happy to be back with you again today. I'm your host, Dr. Alan. I know you'll enjoy today's show, and I have a big ask that will only take a moment of your time. Ratings and reviews are the lifeblood of our podcast. To leave a review and a rating, iPhone or other Apple iOS device users, go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes. For all you non-Apple device users, go to podchasers.com. On either site, search for Real Estate Investing Abundance. Once you find us, leave both a review and a rating. Subscriptions are also vital to the show's success, so please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. It's free to subscribe, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Hello, enlightened investors. I know you're going to enjoy today's show as we take a backseat or behind the scenes look into what it takes to be an active investor and to bring you passive investors solid and lucrative investor information. I'm your host, Dr. Alan, and delighted to be with you today. Are you perhaps a busy professional who has found that your financial well-being has taken a backseat to following your passions? If you can relate, you're not alone, as this is exactly where I found myself while deeply immersed in a career of my passion. My financial well-being unnecessarily took a backseat. I wish I knew 30 years ago what I know today, but I've got great news because Steve Talker Capital was created just for investors like you. So go to our website today, stevetalker.com, and enroll in the Enlightened Investor Circle, and there you'll receive support for your investment goals, no matter your level of expertise. In this modern age of information, we are bombarded with noise. With the plethora of misinformation and disinformation, it is a challenge for legitimate, active real estate investors like myself to break through all of this noise and chatter to reach passive investors and provide you with genuine, well-founded information that supports your investment decision-making. Today's guest, Trevor Oldham, is the founder and CEO of Podcasting You, a podcast booking agency that helps active real estate investors generate more exposure for our real estate investment businesses and opportunities. Trevor, before we get into how to break through the noise of podcast guesting, share with us a memorable experience from your formative years that helped you to be the person you are today.
First off, excited to be here and excited to speak with you today and excited to provide some value for your audience. And as you posed that question and as I got to thinking about it, I think something that, really helped me in my formative years was I was back in college. I was probably 18, 19 years old. And I noticed that I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And, there's like a saying, like 90% of people that are millionaires have done so through investing in real estate. So I was like, I don't know anything about real estate. So let me go out and get my real estate license just to be like a real estate agent. And at that time, I was still around the same group of friends that I had growing up, living in the same town my entire life. And I remember going out there and studying for the test and passing, luckily passing the test. And I remember telling my friends that, hey, I'm super excited. I got my real estate agent license. And they're like, why would you want to do that? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why would you want to do real estate investing? And that was like the turning point in my life where I realized that not everyone wants to be successful in their life. And a lot of the times people are just stuck to the status quo, which is typically someone is going through high school, they go to college, they get a job, they work that job, for however many years. And they hit a certain age, whether that's 60, 65, 70, and they end up retiring. Well, I found that there wasn't a lot of people my young age thinking outside the box. And I realized that if I wanted to be an entrepreneur and to start a business and start a successful business, I couldn't do the typical path that everyone else was taking. And that really shaped my thinking and to start looking to take advice from people that were more successful than me, and to not take advice from people that are sort of living the quote unquote average everyday life. And to not say that that's bad, but I know for me personally, I just couldn't work a 9 to 5 job, come home and sit down and watch TV all day. I had to do something more, something that was going to be more impactful in the world. And that's what really led me into starting Podcasting You.
Well, you were very fortunate to learn that at such a young age. And like many people have said, that we are actually the 5 people that we spend the most of our time with. So you learned at a young age that hanging around with those high school friends that didn't have those same ambitions was not going to take you in the right direction. Well, what an insightful learning experience. And I'm interested in and how did you come to that? I mean, that's not an easy thing for a 19, 20-year-old to realize. So what was it in you that actually drove that understanding?
Yeah, I think it was self-education, going through school, always reading the same sort of books. And then all of a sudden I'm reading, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. I'm turned on to Jim Rohn and I'm watching his speeches on YouTube. And, he goes into that speech that says, you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, as you had mentioned previously in our conversation. And I realized that looking at the friend group that I had at that time, I didn't want to be in their position. I didn't want to just play video games all day. Like, I wanted to start a successful business and to make money on my own without having to go out there and get a typical job like everyone else. And that's sort of where that realization came through, was just going through that self-education and realize, like, this is what Jim Rohn is saying. And I remember it was actually through the real estate agent when I got my license. I won like a raffle, and it was a Jim Rohn CD disc, and it was like 12 different speeches that he had given. And I think the event was out in Anaheim, California. It's a 3-day event, and it just covers the whole event on the 12 CDs. And it was Jim Rohn, and it was Wayne Dyer. And I figured there's another successful, sort of, motivational speaker back then. And I would just listen to that in my car as I was driving around. Anywhere I would go, I would just be playing the Jim Rohn CD. I would finish, one speech of his, pop the CD out, and then pop another CD in. Luckily my car still had a CD player, and it was just listening to those people and listening to what they had to say, and realizing, like, I want that life. Like, I don't want to have to work for 40 or 45 years. And if I, unless I choose to, and if I do choose to, I want it to be something that I enjoy. And like, for me, like, I don't think I could ever stop working. Like, people talk about retirement. Like, I never would really want to retire. I feel like that's for people that don't really enjoy exactly what they're doing. But for me, like, if I just retired and I wasn't just sitting around all day and just say playing golf or not doing too much, like, that's just not enjoyable for me. So I realized I had to build a life that I was going to enjoy. And just by learning from these individuals that were super successful at that time, and just, picking up everything that they say was able to help me.
Yeah, that brings up another point. Studies have indicated that most people pass away about 2 years after they retire. And it's really an unfortunate statistic, because so many people go that typical route of working 30, 40 years and looking forward to that blissful retirement. And most of them can only enjoy that for another 2 years. Well, you had some good mentors there, and you were wise to follow that advice. Well, tell us why it is that we should be guesting on podcasts.
I find, first and foremost, outside of the benefits of driving more leads to your site, of getting, generating new clients, I find that by being a podcast guest, it just expands your network. It allows you to connect with people that you normally wouldn't be able to connect with. It allows you to have conversations with people you normally wouldn't be able to. And I find, first and foremost, just like the networking aspect of it. And you listen to any successful people, and they always say your network is your net worth. Well, it's hard to connect with these people if you're trying to talk to them, not on a podcast interview, where podcasting has set it up so that you can talk to people that are successful. You can get interviewed by people that are successful, and you can put your name up along with those people. So I find, first and foremost, just those networking opportunities. Plus, it helps you to get exposure for yourself, and it helps you to build your personal brand. And I always say, like, I'm not that keen on social media. I don't want to sit there and create Instagram and Facebook posts. Like, that's not what I want to be doing with my day to day. Where on a podcast, I can go on and we can have a great conversation for 30 or 45 minutes, however long it is. And I find that, someone in the audience can hear me, and that's going to help build up my personal brand. And just for time sense, it's just way more enjoyable than sitting down and crafting an Instagram post and coming up with all the captions. Where a podcast interview, it flows more naturally. People get to know you a little bit better. There's only so much that they can read from your posts, where on a podcast interview, they can hear you talk, they can listen to you, they actually get to know you on a little bit better level.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. As an industry-leading, relationship-focused, design-built construction firm, Mosaic Construction has worked in many different asset classes from multifamily to retail, medical, industrial, and commercial. Mosaic Construction works to execute interior and exterior renovations with their team of trades and project managers. Their experience with value-add improvements has resulted in increased ROI and long-term value of the assets. They work nationally in partnership with local trades to deliver thoughtful, problem-solving construction management solutions to all their clients. For a personal, no-obligation consultation, call Ira Singer, 773-491-3145, or email Ira at mosaicconstruction.net. You can also find Ira on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And as a host, I have found that just to be the most enjoyable thing about podcasting is the people that it brings me in contact with. You and I, there's no way in the world that you and I would have met and be talking today if it weren't for the podcast. And that's just true of almost every guest that I have had on my podcast. I've never met them before, and they don't know me from Adam. And we come together and we have always very enjoyable and enlightening and fun conversations. So I totally agree. It is just a wonderful way to network. And as far as social media goes, I couldn't agree with you more. I am on Facebook because it just seems like you have to have a business presence on Facebook if you're going to be in business. I find it to be an extraordinarily toxic environment overall. And it's nothing but sound bites, and you just can't. It's like a cocktail party. You can throw out your sound bites, but it's no place to really get to know people. So I just enjoy the podcast much, much more than any of the social medias. What is your advice to crafting a story for those who are going to be guesting on podcast?
I find that when someone's going out there and guesting on a podcast, typically when you're sharing your story, most people are going to relate to the A to B story. And what I mean by that is, let's say if you're a real estate investor, typically most people aren't born a real estate investor. There's somewhere along the lines that they had to learn how to get started in real estate investing. And typically if someone's successful, there's a story along the way where from A is how did they get interested in real estate investing? Did they not like their job? Did they want to build a passive income stream? Did a friend give them Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And then from that one instance, how did they become a successful real estate investor? Like, what was that sort of, how do they go from no units to say now owning 500 units? And then just sharing that story in between point A and point B. That's what the host and the audience is really going to enjoy. A lot of times people aren't going to learn that much if you come in and say, oh, I have 500 units. That's not that relatable, where someone can relate to someone that starts off where, yeah, I had no units. I was in a 9-to-5 job. I wasn't enjoying it. I realized I wanted to build financial freedom for myself. I started looking around. I bought my first duplex in 6 months. And then a month later, I bought my first fourplex. Now I had 6 units. And then I sold that off and I bought a 10-unit apartment complex. And then, it's just a story that goes from just, literally from zero all the way to how you became successful today. And I feel like when someone's going out there and crafting their story, that's really all it has to do. And the more interviews that you do, the better, of course, you're going to get out of it. But I find anytime someone goes from that point A to point B story, it's going to make it more enjoyable for the host, the audience, and yourself sharing it.
Good advice. Stories, not only is it much more interesting than going out there and trying to tell people step by step how to do it. The stories are inspirational, and the inspiration is what encourages people to get out and do that. We can always pick up a book and read from step A to step B to step C, and that's just really not real estate. What real estate investing is really about relationships. And so podcasts are a great way to tell stories there. Well, what kind of podcast and which ones within any particular genre are the ones that we should target when we're looking for guesting opportunities?
When it comes to this, it really just comes down to your experience as being a podcast guest. And the reason I say this is that there's like a piggyback strategy. Or similar, if you're going into a gym and it's your first time in the gym, you wouldn't try to go lift the biggest weights in the gym. You'd probably start, say, you're curling 10 pounds, and then you're in the gym for 6 months, now you go up to 20 pounds. At the end of the year, you're up to 30 pounds, where it's very similar when it comes to going out there and doing a podcast interview. You don't want to go after the hardest shows and the biggest shows in whatever genre that you may be into. You want to start off on the smaller shows, the shows that, maybe they haven't been around as long, maybe they don't have as many episodes out, but it's going to allow you to practice your story. It's going to allow you to practice just how the whole podcast thing goes, especially if you've never been on a show. It's probably going to be a little bit uncomfortable. You might say, is my mic on? Do I sound properly? Where you just start small, you start on the smaller shows, and then after a couple of months, you get a little bit more confidence, and then maybe you target, a little bit more known shows in your genre. And then at the end of a year, you feel comfortable. You've been on these small shows, you've been on these medium shows, and then you go after these large shows in your space. And that's really what I typically tell anyone that's looking to go out there and to be a podcast guest is you don't want to go on the biggest shows in your genre and have no idea what you're doing, and then have, thousands of people listening to it. And it's just not going to be a good time. So really, that's the best strategy that I recommend to anyone. And typically for these newer shows that say they're a month or two old, they don't have that many episodes out, there's probably not that many people trying to be a guest on their show. So your success rate is going to be super easy. So it's a benefit where the host doesn't have people coming to them to be a guest, where you come as a guest and present yourself to them. So it's a little bit easier to get on. And then as a result, not that many people are probably going to hear your interview, but you get to practice your story. You get to practice what it's like being on a podcast. And then over time, you become comfortable, and then you just work your way up the strategy.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Would you ever invest all your money in a single stock? Very unlikely. Yet investors are willing to risk $50,000 to $100,000 in a single property in real estate all the time. Avestor is the world's first customizable real estate investment platform. Investors can build their own custom portfolios, selecting investments across multiple asset classes such as single-family homes, multifamily, student housing, self-storage, and shopping centers. You can also invest across multiple markets and different time frames. Avestor also enables other real estate entrepreneurs and syndicators to build and use Avestor's infrastructure and cloud platform to create their own customizable real estate funds. To learn more, visit us at avestorinc.com. Avestor, real estate investing made simple.
Well, excellent advice. I suspect a lot of people are a little surprised. I mean, certainly if you have never done a YouTube, which is the way most podcasts are conducted, I don't mean YouTube, I mean a Zoom conference, then it's going to be particularly intimidating. And it's surprising how even those small technicalities can be overwhelming the first few times that you're doing these things. So a great way to start out is with the smaller shows and work your way up. And as you work your way up, you're going to have more confidence. And I can guarantee you that your stage fright is never going to go away. And that's just something you're going to learn to have to deal with as well. And even though there's always going to be a bit of stage fright and a tinge there, that actually is a benefit, and it helps you to put a little edge on the show there and not be so boring, probably. Good advice there. Well, how do you go about developing your pitch? As you said, starting small, you're going to have less of a rejection, but even small shows want quality people on their shows. So how do you develop a pitch?
Most certainly. And when you're going out there and developing your pitch, you want to make it about the show. Like, what value is that host's audience, that show's audience, going to get by you being a guest on that show? And I find that too many people, when they're starting off and booking themselves on podcasts, they make it too much about themselves. They say, I'm an experienced investor, entrepreneur, business owner. This is what I'm doing. Look at me. I'm so great. Or that's nice, but it's not going to typically work out. And I can tell you from experience, we worked with people that have been super successful and have been rejected from shows just because they're talking too much about themselves and they're self-promoting too much. So when you're going out there and writing a pitch, you typically want to say to that host, this is the value that your audience is going to get by having me on the show. Like myself, I go on a show and I teach the audience why they should go on podcasts and how to get booked on podcasts themselves. That's the value that I'm bringing. And then you want to include your experience too. I run a company that does this for a living. We worked with hundreds of clients, and that's my experience. So when you're going out there and crafting your pitch, you always want to tell the host, this is the value your audience is going to get by having me on. And then then when you go into sort of that self-promoting mode, you just go into your experience so that they can see, oh yes, this person knows what they're going to be talking about. If they say that they're going to come on and talk about how to passively invest in apartment complexes, well, I just want to make sure that they actually have had some experience and not have just done one deal. Oh, look, they have, 1,000 units under management and have raised, $100 million, whatever that number may be. And just so that they can see your experience, and then they can say, oh, yep, this is the value he's going to provide. Yep, his experience backs it up, and that's going to get you a great response from the hosts.
Good advice. Always think about the other person and look at it from their perspective. Good advice in just about anything in life, particularly when you're building relationships. You've got your interview, you've prepared your pitch, and you've been accepted on the show. How do you prepare for the show?
When you're going on a show, first and foremost, you don't want to just show up to the interview and you might have some idea about the show name and the host name, the show that you're going on to. You always just want to listen to an episode. I'm not saying like sit down and listen to the episode and that's the only thing that you do, but maybe you have it playing in the background while you're working, just so that way you can get comfortable with the format of the show, because I can guarantee you every single podcast that you would be a guest on, every host is going to do it a little bit different than the other hosts in the space. So you just want to get comfortable. So you want to make sure that you know the show name. You want to make sure that you know the host's name, especially if it's a different name and you may not know how to pronounce it. I guarantee you, if you listen to an episode of that show, the host will say his name at least once and you're going to know how to pronounce it. So it's always just doing these little things to make sure that you're prepared, to make sure that you're comfortable going in. And that way you know how to pronounce the host name, you know how to pronounce the show name, plus you know how the interview flows. And then that way, when you hop into the interview, you know what to expect and there's not going to be sort of any curveballs being thrown at you.
Well, good advice. Get to know the show you're going to be on. And it's not difficult to do. I mean, that's the beauty of podcasts. Yep. You can be exercising, you can be driving your car, you can be preparing your meal, and you can have that podcast running in the background. That's one of the beauties of podcasts. You don't have to sit down and listen to it intently there. You can multitask, although multitasking is not as great as what people think, but podcasting is one way I think you can get away with it. Well, how do you use the podcast interviews as opportunities to generate leads? I mean, that's really the whole point in doing it.
Yeah, most certainly. And typically the way that you want to do it is you want to set up a landing page, whether that's a specific landing page to each show that you go on, or whether that's a lead magnet, whether that lead magnet could be a free webinar, it could be a free ebook, it could be a masterclass, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that you set up a lead magnet, and that's where you're sending that podcast's audience to. Because I can guarantee you, you could send them to the homepage of your website and you may get some leads coming in through that. But I find that like our website, as an example, we have our homepage, we have a media section, an about us section. We have a section that goes into how our company works. If I send someone there with the goal of scheduling a call with our company, they're going to go on there, they're going to click on the homepage, and then they're going to go over it. And there's all these these different tabs they can click on, and then they're just gonna be like, oh, what was I here? I'm gonna hop over to the next website or my next task, or I'm just gonna hop off of it. Where when you send them to the landing page, it's just very direct. It can be short, it can be simple, and then just give them that one button to click, and whatever that button may be, whether again that's a free webinar, free masterclass, free ebook, and that way you're able to capture the leads from your interview. Because a lot of the times people could hear you on an interview and they may say, I like what this person is offering, but I'm not ready to purchase their product or service yet, or I want to get to know them a little bit better. And if they just hop over to your website and that's the end of them getting to know you, well, that's basically the end of the relationship, where you capture them in a lead magnet. Now they're in your email funnel, and there's all sorts of things that you can do. They're on your email list, and maybe you send them an email once a week or once every 2 weeks. Please don't be those companies that send it like 1 or 2 a day. That's no one likes those companies. But just to keep in touch with them, and it's gonna be super helpful for you. Because I've had leads where I had a conversation with on a podcast. The lead signs up on my free offering, and then they're in my email list. And then like 3 years later, they're like, oh yeah, I heard you on that podcast. Now I'm ready to sign up for your service. And this is an actual story. It happened, I think, back in late March, early April. And I've had people from a year ago that heard me on a podcast that signed up for the lead magnet that, they weren't ready then, but now they're ready to work with us. And you just never know. So that's why you always want to make sure that you're capturing those leads, especially from your interviews.
I suspect it's rare that somebody hears you on a podcast and then immediately goes out and signs up. Now let's do your thing there. It takes time, and that's just part of that relationship building process. And that's really what lead magnets are for: is to develop relationships and not necessarily to make big bang sales all at once off the top there. Well, speaking of lead magnets, Trevor, how can our viewers and listeners get in touch with you?
Yep, most certainly. So the best way to go about it would be go to our website, podcastingyou.com/masterclass. And when you go there to that URL, you're going to have an opportunity to download a free 20-minute video of myself where I walk you through everything you need to know on how to get yourself booked on podcasts. I'll walk you through how to write the pitch, how to research shows. Just all that good information is out there in that 20-minute video.
Enlightened investors, we'll be right back after this important announcement. I have a big ask that will only take a moment of your time. Ratings and reviews are the lifeblood of our podcast. So to leave a review, iPhone or other Apple iOS device users, go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes. For all you non-Apple device users, go to podchasers.com. On either platform, search for Real Estate Investing Abundance. Once found, please leave a review and a rating. Subscriptions are also vital to our show's success, so please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. It is free to subscribe, and you can unsubscribe at any time.
Well, sounds like an excellent video. So viewers and listeners, head over there and get to know Trevor Oldham just a little bit better. Well, let's go into our last segment here, Trevor. And if you would share with us one of the most difficult setbacks that you have had to endure in life, and how did you come through that time, and what did you learn from that?
I think say probably a setback has been trying to hire employees for my company. And it was always the thing where in my mindset where I was always saying, I'm the best one to do it. No one can do it as good as me. And especially starting off for the first year in business, I did everything in this business, which consisted of taking sales calls, of researching shows for clients, creating pitches, pitching clients, everything that goes into getting clients booked on shows. First year, I did it all myself. And then the second year, brought on my first employee, brought them on. I remember the first one didn't do a great job, hired them for probably about 2 weeks, part-time employee coming on, still a little nervous about hiring an employee and then having them disappear after those 2 weeks. So that was probably a big setback. And just in my mindset of realizing that to build a successful company, you're going to have employees. And at the end of the day, I can't be the one doing sort of these tasks such as answering all the emails, sending all the invoices, pitching all the clients. Like I have to put people in place within my company to do that so that I can spend my time on revenue generating tasks, which is going out there doing podcast interviews. It's creating lead magnets. It's doing everything I can to drive more business for our company. Because at the end of the day, if I don't drive more business for our company, then the business is going to go out if there's no sales. So by focusing on these tasks, it allows our company to grow. Well, I put a team together to focus on the other tasks of getting clients booked on shows and all that good stuff. So that was probably a setback and just sort of my mindset that I had to overcome, especially early on in my business. And then once I became comfortable with hiring employees, I realized how amazing it was. And that there's pretty much anyone out there that would be willing to do a task that you don't like or enjoy. And there's someone out there that would enjoy doing that task. So it's definitely something I had to overcome and to really realize as I was trying to start and grow my business.
Yeah, that is challenging when you first start out doing that. My first hire was also just a part-time employee. They didn't disappear, but it was very obvious after 2 weeks that it just wasn't going to work. And it's just not pleasant to have to tell somebody that. But that's part of being an employer. And it's not pleasant, but you have to do it. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from with that. It's a big step. Well, for what in your life are you most grateful for?
I would say most grateful for has to be the support of just everything that I've done, especially from my dad. I call him every day and he always asks me like, how's the business going? He sent me a text this morning that said, good luck on your sales calls today in the business. And, he's just always been super supportive. And I found that that's a big benefactor for me because it's super hard to go out there and to start a business, especially when typically people my age, being a younger entrepreneur and younger business owner. Most people graduate college and they go work for a company, where myself, I graduated college and I just kept going on with my business that I had started in college. So it's always been just super grateful to have that support of him, because it would just be super tough if I didn't have that support of talking to him every day, and especially when things aren't going that well in the business, when, if an employee is doing bad or a client's giving us some problems, whatever it may be, it's always nice to have that ear that I can talk him to. Because at one point he was a small business owner, quite a few years ago, but he has that sort of insight and knows all about it. So definitely very grateful for him and having his support.
Well, that is truly a blessing. And it's nice that it can be your father. That is an unusual experience, really. Most fathers and sons don't have that kind of relationship. So you're truly fortunate there. Well, how are you putting your success as an entrepreneur to help to develop a world of well-being for everybody?
I find that the best way to put the business and the well-being for everyone is just providing jobs to people, and, being able to expand the company. And the more clients that we get, the more that I can employ people, and the more people I employ, I can help pay for their mortgage. I can help pay for, their kids' college tuition. And I find that that's the greatest thing for me, is knowing that I'm able to provide an income for my employees and just being able to help them out in their own life. And that's really been the biggest thing for me, outside of, some philanthropic work and to donating to some charities. First and foremost, just seeing how the impact I can have on my employees, especially, the biggest thing is like having an employee that's, they're being underutilized in their current job, and they come over to our company and I give them, a nice role and they enjoy it. And you can just see almost like the life coming back to them. And that's really what makes me, happy as a business owner and being able to help them.
Yeah. Wow. That is a blessing and a joy to be able to impact others' lives, for sure. Well, this may be difficult for you, as young a man as you are, but when you come to the end of life's journey and you're on your deathbed, what do you look back on as your most satisfying and most fulfilling memories?
I would say probably the most satisfying and fulfilling has got to be just knowing I lived life on my own terms, that I get up every day and I enjoy what I do. And, to the point where, I had to force myself not to work on the weekends because I enjoyed it too much. And, you talk to most people and they live for Fridays. And I think just looking back on my life, at the end, and just knowing that I just enjoyed everything that I did. I enjoyed my business. I enjoyed running it. I didn't hate Mondays and I didn't look forward to Fridays. I was just as happy on Mondays as I was on Fridays, knowing that my business is impacting the world. And I think that's really what I would look back on, just knowing I woke up every day and really enjoyed my life. Because I'm sure we all can think of someone that, works a job that they may not like and they complain about it or they hate it and they just don't know how to escape from it. And they stick to it just because it gives them an income. And just looking back and knowing I never had to do that is definitely something I look forward to.
What a way to live a life, for certain. And I've been on both sides of that fence. I know what it's like to be in a job, to hate Mondays and to look forward to Fridays. I know what it's like to be in a job and a profession where the weekends are no better than a week. And I was blessed to have a career that I truly loved and enjoyed. Well, Trevor, it has been a delight having you on. You're a delightful young man and have a wonderful business there. So congratulations to you for that. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.